الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا الأنبياء والمرسلين. Dear respected brothers, sisters, guests and listeners, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Before we start our show, I'd just like to make dua for all of the listeners and viewers out there who are observing the holy month of Ramadan. And I ask that Allah blesses you and accept your fasts sincerely for His sake, inshallah ta'ala. Now, today on the show, it's called Your Education, Your Schooling. We are talking about whether religious symbols should be allowed in schools or not, and if so, to what extent should they be promoted. We have two guests on the show today with us. One is Fatima, a mother of one, and the other is Emma. And we'd like to just start off by just introducing each of the guests, and them just being able to say a little bit about themselves and their role in education and their exposure to education itself. Emma.
Yes, so I've been working in education for a number of years as a primary school teacher, and I've had experience of the kind of role of religion within schools and how it's represented.
Super.
I am mother, and I've been home educating my daughter, and I really have a view on education and the fact that a one-to-one education is, in some cases, better than the school system itself.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you so much. So, first and foremost, let me just read out this government poll. YouGov has been conducting surveys on public attitudes to the wearing of religious clothing and symbols in the workplace. The polls were taken in the light of the 4 cases recently heard in the European Court of Human Rights. In the study, opinion was sought about the entitlement to wear 3 religious garments. So one was a chain necklace with a Christian cross, another was a Jewish kippah, skull cap, and the third was an Islamic burqa in 4 different professional situations. One situation was being a flight attendant, another was a nurse, teacher, and then an accountant. Now, the survey actually found that there are more people receptive to accountants being entitled to wear religious symbols than the more public-facing professions such as nurses, teachers, and flight attendants. Now, across all 4 profession settings, it found that people were more comfortable with crosses and kippahs being worn than the burqa itself. People were generally happy with a flight attendant wearing a cross, where there was 80% approval, than a nurse who had 70% approval, and overall, only 27% of people thought it was okay to wear a burqa at work, with a nurse in a burqa likely to gain least approval, 18%, and a teacher not far behind at 22%. That's just reading off, obviously, some information about the from YouGov. Now, the first thing that we'd like to sort of address for our audience and listeners out there is what constitutes a religious symbol? If we could just have that answered, please. Emma.
I think a religious symbol is anything that goes in line with the practices of that religion. So we know that with particular religions that certain symbols have a particular role to play. Also, certain religious symbols, they represent that religion, and, key elements of that religion. So for me, yeah, it's about a representation of that religion, and someone sort of wearing it every day. They are expressing that they're part of that religion.
Super, thank you so much. And yourself?
Yeah, I agree with the definition that a religious symbol is something that's part of the religion itself, or can be a form or an expression of someone's faith.
Brilliant. So we are we've got a definition of that a religious symbol essentially is an iconic representation intended to represent a specific concept within a given religion. So we are going to focus on a few of the following religious symbols. So, for instance, in the Hindu faith, we have the rakhi, which is it's like you can say it's a piece of cloth like material that will be wrapped around a brother's wrist to symbolize his relationship with his sister. Then we have the turban, which represents modesty, not modesty, equality in the Sikh faith. We have the hijab, we have the kippah, we have religious bangles, rings, or jewelry, we have crosses and pentangle necklaces. So the first thing is, why is it that schools should interfere with what a pupil considers important in their faith? To what extent? Fatima, please.
Okay. I don't think school should interfere with people's belief or representing themselves in a certain way, if that's what they're comfortable with. So I think school should be neutral in allowing children or families to dress a certain way if that's what they're comfortable with. So I don't think should intervene in stopping that.
So it'd be right to say that you have the perspective that there should be no intervention from schools at all, and that children should be allowed to express themselves in whatever way that they feel like, according to their religious practice.
Yes.
Okay, we'll come back to that. And just to think about whether or not there is, if you like, there should be a cap or a limit in that. If you could just answer the same question.
I mean, I completely agree with you. I think that for most religions that are probably within this country, religious symbols are an expression of that religion, and therefore there's nothing wrong with it, and it should be allowed within the school environment. But I think that it depends on the actual religion itself. So if you've got a particular religion, and I'm thinking more along the lines of kind of far right, sort of neo-Nazi type religions that you sort of get in America, sort of white supremacists, where the key tenets within that cult is about inciting hatred and violence towards other minority groups. And I think if you've got a child that is indoctrinated to that, I mean, you could argue that for them to wear a representation of their faith to school should be allowed because it's an expression of their faith.
Precisely.
But you have to think about what is that expressing, because if the key tenets of that cult-like faith is about inciting hatred and violence, then you have to draw the line, and I think that's where schools have to get involved. And I mean, anyway, if a child was indoctrinated to a cult, sort of neo-Nazi, sort of fascist-like movement, then that would be a child protection issue anyway, and the school would be involved anyway, and they would have to pass that on to the relevant authorities. So I think it would never probably get to the stage of, yes, we should have these symbols around the school and we should be representing this, because it would already be a child protection issue, so the line would already be drawn. So I think yes, it's all about expressing oneself and expressing one's faith, and that's really important. But in extreme cases of cult-like followings, that's where schools would say no.
I totally agree with this.
Yeah.
I totally agree with this. When there is sort of racism or nationalism or some kind of negative that's going to impact where there is no fairness across, cultures. Because at the end of the day, most religions do promote peace and the acceptance of other cultures and other people's faith, and accept people as they are. So that's but if a cult doesn't promote that, then I think then the school should intervene rather than spread negative message to other children.
So isn't it then that we're saying that so long as the state decides that the message of the, if you like, the faith or the cult itself is in line with their the overall government perspective of things, and that dictates what is considered to be moderate. So are we saying that then the government would then decide which one is, if you like, okay, and which one is not okay? Because then we get into if you like, a decade by decade perspective of subjective perspectives on what is okay. Because maybe if we went back 60, 30, even less than that, 30, 40, 50 years ago in America, well, the KKK might not necessarily be as extreme or as considered to be cult-like as, let's say, nowadays. So are we saying that's the real question? I mean,
I think it just comes down to, the bottom line is, does it incite prejudice? Does it incite hatred? Does it incite violence? And if the answers to those questions are yes, then it's, one, a child protection issue anyway, and two, it just should not be allowed to be expressed, because and I'm not talking about the way that some cultures are viewed. So some people have prejudice towards certain cultures, and those people think that those cultures you know, incite prejudice and violence and hate, when actually they don't. They're just viewed
and misunderstood.
they're misunderstood, and that's not what I mean. What I mean is the key principles of a particular cult or religious-like following are about prejudice towards minority groups and inciting hate.
Okay.
Then that's where you draw the line. And I think it's sort of going back to what you said as well, where you sort of said that, well, if the cult doesn't incite those things, then it's okay. I think we have to look at the definition of what is the difference between a religion and a cult.
Yes.
So what takes someone's faith and their beliefs and then transforms it into a cult-like following? And that's quite a large step. So how does that go from faiths and beliefs
into cults,
into a cult-like structure? And a cult-like structure has suggestions of a lack of freedom of people within that group. Historically, anyway, it has those sorts of connotations. I'm not saying that all cults are like that. I don't know. I don't know every single cult.
Or good cults out there.
I mean,
I think obviously one thing to come back to you is, I think one thing that we sort of unanimously agreed upon is actually making sure that it wasn't inciting any violence, and it wasn't inciting any sort of calls to and with those, if you like, those key, there were three key things that you mentioned about prejudice, about discrimination, about, you know, hate, and, you know, not inciting violence. I think those things would make up a good sizable number of things that we can weed through the you know, the cults that are out there. And actually, because essentially, if you consider, even if you like the faith that we sort of mentioned with regards to their religious symbols and emblems and in terms of clothing, there isn't anything at the heart of the Sikh faith, the Islamic faith, the Christian faith, the Jewish faith, the Hindu faith, that is specifically, you know, any sort of prejudice or discriminatory that sort of behaviour. I just wanted to actually discuss a case that, albeit a decade ago, where there was a Sikh girl in South Wales who went to Aberdare Girls' School in Wales. Now, she claimed she was discriminated against because she was not allowed to wear a religious bangle to school. The school excluded her for 9 months because they said it breaks the school's no jewelry policy. But before we find out the actual result of that, I'd just like to explore, you know, as guests and as a host, actually what went wrong here. Now, surely, if I was playing devil's advocate here, a pupil who wears an item that has explicitly been forbidden by the school and is breaking the school's policy, there's nothing wrong in, you know, excluding a pupil for nine months until she's, you know, prepared to adhere to the school's policy of not wearing jewelry. But it was a religious bangle, you know, under the Sikh faith. So, you know, where is it?
I believe that before sending your child to school, as a parent, you should know what the policy is and whether that fits your view and way of living. If it doesn't fit in, then as a parent, I would have applied to a different school and sent my child to a different school where this was authorized by the school, by school policy, basically. So it should have been a discussion within the school itself, with the parent and the school, to find out whether the child, because it's a religious what do you call it? Sorry,
bangle, the
religious bangle. Then, if the child would be allowed to wear this as an exception to the rule. If the school is not ready to do this, then as the parent should have looked for a different school.
Okay, but what do we say then when, let's say, at the beginning of school, every child or every family may go through different times in their lives where they are maybe more religious, have more religious convictions, they learn more about their faith. As they grow deeper into their faith, they realize that there are certain things that are required. Maybe, you know, maybe there's an emblem, maybe there's a piece of jewelry, maybe even if you like, from an Islamic perspective, maybe the hijab might start being worn. Or do you see? So what about if you've gone, you know, for a few years inside of school, you attended for a few years inside of school, and then, you know, your religious conviction grows as a parent, and then your child gets older, and then you're expected to don this garment for your child, who also equally then gets a religious conviction and starts to don also the garment. Where would you then say that a parent should take their child out of the school because the school said that there's no jewelry allowed at all? Or what do you say, Emma?
I think we need to think about the error that the school has made in classing a religious bangle as a piece of jewellery. So if we look at the actual definition of what a piece of jewellery is, it's about showing a sense of your identity and putting something on that is an expression of your identity. And that is contrary to what school uniform is. So school uniform is the idea that when children put on a school uniform, they're going to school, they're, a unitary kind of, everyone is sort of in unison, everyone is the same. It creates that sort of equilibrium amongst children. And therefore they are seeing that a piece of jewellery is contrary to that. However, a Sikh bangle is not a piece of jewellery. It's an expression of their faith. So it shouldn't have even been classified under that umbrella as a piece of jewellery, because it doesn't hold that purpose. It's not an expression of themselves in the sense of demarcating themselves from other children in the same way that non-school uniform would be. So you see non-school uniform days and children come in with lots of different types of clothing, trainers and they love it, and that's great, and that is partly about expressing their identity and demarcating themselves from their peers and saying, oh, I'm like this when I'm outside of school, this is what I wear, this is my identity. And jewellery would be a part of that. But a Sikh bangle is not a part of that. It's about religious expression. And religious expression is something that is held in schools as something that is allowed, that should be encouraged. So I just think that the terms, the definitions in what the school has classed as jewellery is not correct. It's a Sikh bangle is not jewellery, it's religious expression, and it should have been allowed. So
you consider that actually the school should never have allowed that child to, they should never have suspended that child?
No, they shouldn't. I mean, there are lots and lots of schools where Sikh children wear Sikh bangles, and there are lots of schools as well where they wear turbans, and Muslim children wear headscarves, and they don't turn around to those children and say that's not school uniform because that's non-school uniform. It's not non-school uniform. It's religious expression. It's not the same thing as putting a pair of jeans and a pair of trainers on and coming to school. It's not the same thing at all. It's completely different.
Well, you will be happy to know that after it was taken to the High Court, they overturned the decision and agreed that it was an expression of her Sikh faith. So what we've said is in line with the High Court essentially, and that was pretty amazing. Just some thoughts here. That the parents' views were, it is a religious symbol, so that actually runs in concurrence to what we're actually expressing here. It is a religious symbol and a religious principle. We wear it for religious reasons. It's not to give a statement for fashion, as was pointed out. Me and my wife are trying to bring our son up in our religion, and the school is trying to take my child's beliefs away from him. Yet they study religious education. There's surely they should know what the Qara means to us, which is the name of the religious bangle. So they should, there should be a tolerance and a high tolerance level within a school. Also, some views from some pupils that attended that school, talking about religious symbols being in schools. One child, Becky, 12, said that schools should have a jewelry limit rather than a ban. Say, let the pupils wear 2 items of jewelry to school. Teachers wear jewelry when they're working. We should be allowed to. Another pupil, James, 13. Of course it is. It would not be fair if you could not wear religious jewelry at school. You should be able to wear religious jewelry anytime you want. And the last few from John, 13 years old also, who also said that you should be able to wear religious jewelry anytime you want. So that all of those expressions, are in concurrence to what we've already expressed. Now, the vast majority of schools ban jewelry as part of their uniform policies, and head teachers remain defiant, declaring all neck chains, regardless of whether they are religious or not, for health and safety reasons. Sorry, yes, we have a caller on the line. Hello, good afternoon, caller. Good afternoon, caller. How are you and what's your name? So there seems to be a slight technical difficulty.
Discussing
Hello?
here what are the actual limits and of the religious symbols. I mean, I'll tell you an incident that happened with me, and I was quite shocked, and I've never really known the answer to this. You're talking about the qara, the bangles, the Sikh faith. They actually have 5 Ks. They call it the 5 Ks that they have to basically keep on them, which is the qara, and then there's other ones. But one of them is the qarban, and the qarban is like a little sword. It's like a little dagger. And I remember being in changing rooms in PE getting ready, and one of the Sikh boys, he basically, I saw under his shirt he had he had a little pouch with a dagger in it, and I thought, well, that you can't be holding that around, because that's actually now, according to the Sikh faith, that's compulsory. They have to do that. That's part of their faith. Where do we draw the line? I mean, surely that's going to encourage knife crime, isn't it? If you can just elaborate on that. If a religious symbol is basically that deep rooted that it's actually compulsory within their religion to do that, and I'm talking about a dagger which is not necessarily sharp, or it can be used as a knife. I mean, but it's still a dagger. Maybe a blunted out one or whatever. But if you can just elaborate and just touch on that subject.
That also, you're sort of asking the question as to also the perception as well that other children might have of the actual symbol itself, because
exactly. So it's basically, it looks like a dagger. So you're opening up a can of worms, because what you're going to basically, if you did allow that, then where would you stop? Would you go and start checking everyone's qarban to make sure it's sharp or it's blunt, or do you understand? And then the other thing is the qara. You talk about the qara. I mean, a lot of the students that I was with in school from the Sikh faith, their qara was like really sharp, and they used to like literally brandish it about around their fist. So if they ever got into a fight, they would use it. So it is a religious symbol, but it's about where are schools supposed to draw that line and say, right, this qara is basically allowed, but if it's this chunky or this it's got a sharp edge to it, then it's not allowed. How would you basically? It's quite a difficult line to draw. So what does the panel have to say about that?
that is indeed a brilliant question. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I believe that if it's something that can be used as a weapon, or be used to threaten other children with, or maybe bully other children and say, I'm the strongest here because I have this and you don't have it, then it isn't fair somewhere, because this child might be in a certain position because of having this weapon with them at all times, which means that they can probably not be nice to other children because they've got that.
Yeah, I think we have to consider the fact that we have to consider the responsibility of children. And, are they responsible to have this religious symbol when thinking about the implications, like you said? And if the answer to that question is no, then perhaps it's not the most responsible thing to allow that to happen. But I see what you say when you're saying sort of where do you draw the line. It's a really, really difficult one, because I'm sure there are lots of children who are responsible enough to have that on them and not use it badly. But schools would need to create policies in order to implement these sorts of rules, and unfortunately policies are sort of sweeping and they do kind of generalize, so they wouldn't be able to say that some students can bring it in and other students can't. But yeah, I just think it goes back to how responsible are children of that age.
Precisely, and what age do we start saying that children are do have a religious conviction or are strong enough in their understanding of their religion to be able to don a religious garment or emblem? But I think one thing that still remains to be answered is who should what role does the school have to play in deciding to what extent a child's religious symbol comes into play in the classroom and in their day-to-day wearing? Like one side is obviously, as we've discussed, is where a child has a maybe a religious bangle, as we were talking in the Qara, in the Sikh faith. But another side, as we heard our caller saying regarding that, like what might be considered to be like a dagger to other children. And we all know that children's perception of fairness and inequality is so strong at a young age. They perceive one child being able to do something, another child not being able to do anything, as a total lack of consistency, and I'm being persecuted. And then when you get this instance, you have I guess the schools to some extent should perhaps or possibly be in discussion with local teachers, either or theologians or maybe scholars, or either it's imams or priests from the local place of worship, to make sure that they are able to have the discussions. How are we going to address that there is a set of children in the school who they're expected to don this religious garment, whether it's maybe as we were talking about this, dagger thing underneath their clothes. How do we address this in the classroom, where we have children who might perceive this in the wrong way? Because if they come in then and say, well, let's say another child, I'm not sure if you've all, well, some of us might have, I'm sure it's perhaps Othello, and when he has a dagger, and I believe in the dagger there's a cross. Now, what about if a child then came in and said, well, hey, this is my this is part of my faith, and my parent says that I should have this with me because it's as a reminder of my Christian heritage, and it's small and it has a cross on there to remind me of my religious conviction. Well, where would we draw the line? Are we going to say that, no, you can't, because, well, we don't know if that's a tenet of the faith or not. It's just your parent saying to you that you need to do it. And the other one is a child then gets very mixed messages. Do we have any thoughts?
That's not a traditional Christian symbol, though. I know the cross is, but putting it into a dagger is not a traditional thing to do.
Isn't it the child's perception, though? Because children perceive so many things in different ways. We
can have perceptions about everything. It doesn't mean that they're all right. It doesn't, even if our perceptions have very, very strong convictions, that doesn't mean that they're correct. And it's not a traditional thing to do, to put a cross sort of into a dagger. Going back to what I said before, I think I just want to add on what I said about, how responsible are children. I think that also if a child, I think by what the caller said, by having the dagger underneath their clothing, I would be quite worried as a teacher if one of the children fell over and that was there, sort of where their stomach is, about what could happen. Health and safety reasons. I think health and safety for reasons it would worry. Because children are playing all the time.
Running the playground.
Yeah, they're running into each other. That could quite easily turn into a very nasty accident.
And then I think if we go into the health and safety, we know that health and safety is something that gets pulled out every time there is something. We say for health and safety reasons we can't do this or do that. And then you find people who can't express themselves because of health and safety reasons. That's also, there's I think it's kind of blurry where health and safety starts and where it finishes, because that gets used quite a lot in the workplace, in different places that will get used quite a lot. which is the downside of it, because I think it's being abused rather than used efficiently in some situations.
So it seems to me that we're amazing, sort of taking a real strong middle path, only to say that we're okay in the religious expression field as long as there are, it adheres to health and safety policies. Brilliant. And also we're talking about, when we talked about cults, it doesn't express any extremist, let me not say the word extremist views, but it necessarily a culture of hatred or prejudice or discriminatory behavior or incitement to violence. So that was all amazing. There was another case that I sort of wanted to bring to the table, which was a young girl at Denai High School in Luton, Shabna Begum. She won a 2005 Court of Appeal to be allowed to wear head-to-toe religious dress. The school did allow girls to wear the hijab, a headscarf, as you're wearing also, and trouser, but refused to allow her to come in full-length dress. The school won its appeal at the House of Lords and was said that it had taken immense plans to devise a uniform policy which respected Muslim beliefs. Now they are then starting to interfere with how far they're prepared to go. So they said, right, we can allow you to wear, maybe a headscarf, but the full clothing, the jibab, that said that we're not going to accept that in the school. Now, why do you think that a school should dictate? Because I'm sure that in this instance, again, that's another religious expression being sort of impeded upon here. So what's our thoughts?
I think, again, it comes down to health and safety, doesn't it? I think that you have to think about, for a child, say in a PE lesson, to be running around in something that reaches the ground, that might cause them to trip and really hurt themselves. So I think in that respect, and if they're outside playing in the playground, that might happen as well. But I mean, that doesn't encompass the entire school day, so I can see where the contention is. I don't know, it's a really difficult one. I think as well, my own personal experience of being a teacher, I think I would find it quite difficult to teach children where their faces are quite significantly covered. I think because I need to be able to see their expression, I need to be able to see their reaction, I need to be able to understand that they understand what I'm saying and that they're receiving what I'm teaching. And I suppose I would find that quite hard. I'm sure I could adjust, but I would find that probably quite hard if I was teaching someone and I couldn't see if they were understanding something or not, because I couldn't see the whole of their face. Yeah.
So we're going down the line of, I want to see people's facial expression and to understand what their thoughts or their feelings are like. We're going to keep that there and leave that question on the tips and lips of our viewers and listeners. And we're going to go to a short break.
On Instagram.
Store. Visit the store to view our special Ramadan offers. 420 Hull Street, Walthamstow, E17 9AA. Or for free delivery, call us on 0208 521 0000. We have fresh deliveries of poultry and vegetables every day. Waris Food Store in Walthamstow.
Reliance Solicitors fight to protect your legal rights. Our firm offers a wide range of services including immigration, family law, commercial law, civil litigation, personal injury, landlord and tenant disputes and employment law. Visit us at 602A High Road, 7 Kings, Ilford, IG3 8BU or call 0207 183 5439. Reliance Solicitors, where every client matters.
Britain Solicitors in East Ham, the name you can trust. We provide services in immigration, family law, landlord and tenant matters, commercial leases and civil litigation. We also deal in personal injury claims and road traffic accidents. Call us on 0203 475 7845 or visit us at 62 Barking Road, East Ham, E6 3BP.
Ramadan FM 2018,
the voice of British Muslims.
Atlantic Distributions,
Whether it is frozen fish, marinated Lahori masala fish, or lamb offals, we have them available at very competitive prices. We are wholesale suppliers to restaurants, butchers and caterers. Visit us at 51 to 53 Upton Lane, London E7 9PA. Contact us on 07415 474 185.
Usman needs the adhesive to work. If not, his day will be a disaster. Ah! So, Usman, if you really need something to bond, grab a tube of CT1 from your local stockist. An incredibly powerful sealant and construction adhesive that's fast, flexible and strong. It can be used anywhere, even underwater. For more info, ct1limited.com or follow us on Facebook or ring us on 0208 555 1448.
In an age of technological advancement, mass communication and social media, having the right website and app can be the difference that your business needs. AppSite Tech are here to take your business to the next level. No matter how simple or how sophisticated your requirements are, our technicians will work with you to create a bespoke website and app for your organisation. Call us now on 07538 8081212 or visit appsitetech.co.uk and book your free consultation now.
Amigos, the signature name when it comes to burgers and shakes. Our succulent burgers are prepared in front of you while you wait. Whether you go for the 6-ounce Mexican or the 10-ounce Texan, or you decide to go for our messy fries or buffalo wings, one thing you're guaranteed is quality. We've also got a range of desserts including our trademark shakes in all your favourite flavours. We're based at 400 Cranbrook Road in Gants Hill, so come down to dine in or order in on Uber Eats or Just Eat. Amigos, hats off to great burgers.
Ramadan FM 2018.
The voice of British Muslims.
Hey, तेन 20 बारी आके आता क्रिकेट ना खेलिया कर तो फिर विंडो पंच हो रही है.
Don't worry, Dad. Our windows need changing anyway.
हाँ तो पैसे तू दे से ना.
Nah, don't worry, Dad. UK Windows will sort it out.
UK Window? Oh, कौन है ना?
They're the best double glazing company about. They do windows, patios, French doors, sliding doors, UPVC, aluminium, you name it, they've got it. We can go see them at 51 to 53 Upton Lane, Forest Gate E79PA, or call them at 07984 440 093 or visit ukwindowslondon.co.uk.
वाह जी वाह, ये तो कमाल है यार. UK Windows
Zindabad.
Thinking about selling or letting your home? With Maxwell Estates, you don't need to look any further. Well established with over 15 years of experience, Maxwell Estates are specialists in residential sales and lettings. We manage over 200 properties in and around Northwest London, keeping our landlords and tenants updated with all the latest laws and legislations. Based in Edgware, our experienced specialist negotiators always ensure we maximise the full potential of your property. Call us now on 0208 952 0808 for a free no obligation quotation, or visit our website www.maxwellestates.co.uk for further information. Maxwell Estates, the name you can trust.
With over 25 years experience in the East London area, there's no better firm to rely on than Cameron Adams Century 21 when it comes to properties. Be it lettings, property management or sales, we can assist you to ensure you get the most out of your property. Contact us on 0208 558 2000 for a free, no obligation valuation and watch us do what we do best.
Grab your taste of luxury at Pink's Boutique. Designer brands like Hugo Boss and Armani to keep your style in check. Catering for ladies, men and kids, Pink's Boutique has it all under one roof. And we offer shipping worldwide, so get the look to fit your attitude. Visit us on our website at pinksboutique.co.uk. Remember, that's pnksboutique.co.uk. Or pop into our store at 302 Brentwood Road, Romford, RM2 5TA.
Ramadan FM 2018.
The voice of British Muslims.
European University of Business now offering BA Business Management, MBA with specialisation. Our courses are regulated by UK Quality Assurance.
Welcome back, viewers, listeners. You're here back with Your Education, Your Schooling, with my two esteemed guests, Fatima and Emma, and myself, Ziaul Haq. And the last point that we discussed just now was children's faces being covered in education. Now, Emma actually said and commented that having a child's face, let's say if it was the burqa, being fully covered would essentially prohibit her from being able to understand, to what extent that child comprehends her lesson, or this kind of thing. So that's an amazing point. But I want to actually question that perspective. Most communication is done without visuals, wouldn't we say? So then we're saying that actually we don't really need visuals. So actually people could go around, if you like, females, even males, I don't know. There was in a society where there are males who had to, be covered, where they didn't need to have their face on display. So
I actually disagree with that. I would say the majority of communication is non-verbal. It is visual. If you think about when you have a conversation with someone, all the other little things that you're picking up on. So you're picking up on their facial expression, their body language, and none of that is verbal. So actually, for instance, when you're on the phone to someone and you're having a conversation on the phone, there's certain things that you can't pick up on, and things can get miscommunicated and sort of lost in translation. Whereas if you're having a conversation with someone face to face, you're picking up on everything. You're picking up on their mood, whether or not they've understood you. So I don't necessarily agree that we'd be fine without visuals at all.
Okay.
So when you say in the burqa, do you actually mean the niqab rather than the burqa?
Essentially,
The burqa
the
is
niqab.
something that actually covers the eyes as well, where
Right.
the niqab is only the eyes are uncovered.
Yeah.
Thank you for that clarification.
A lot of the facial expression is through the eyes. I know we think we need to see if someone is smiling or someone is frowning. However, with the niqab on, even with the hijab and the niqab, most of the facial expression is through the eyes. So if someone is smiling, you can see that they're smiling through their eyes, because the eyes tell you if they are sad, you see through their eyes. So all the expression happens actually through the eyes itself, rather than the teeth, seeing someone's teeth or someone nose or that. So it's mainly the eyes, and you'd be surprised that once you know someone who actually wears a niqab, if you saw them in the streets, you actually recognize them just with the eyes only. So actually, so that tells you a lot, the eyes itself. However, I don't think there's many children in the school system who actually wear the niqab. From what I've seen, it's mainly adult women who do, rather than children themselves. However, the hijab doesn't stop someone's facial expression being displayed, and I agree that most of the communication is non-verbal. So even if someone was to wear like a loose garment on top of their outfit, going to school, that wouldn't stop body language neither, because then body language happens through our hands. So we can still see that. So facial expression is still there, and body language is still there, whether someone's wearing the niqab or not. As opposed to phone conversation, which is only based on intonation, and there is no visual at all.
So a clear difference there. Okay, moving slightly on. So I just wanted to actually bring us to a table of study that was conducted talking about discrimination and religious discrimination. Now, there are 9 protected characteristics that the government has to essentially, in all schools, they have to be taught to respect and uphold these different characteristics in schools. Now, one of them being age, another one being disability, ethnic origin, gender, religion or belief, and then sexual orientation, amongst others. Now, the study found that in terms of discrimination, the perception of discrimination by these groups, so we're now talking about the overall general sort of feel in terms of how this is my religion, this is how I express myself, and I perceive that people are discriminating against me in this way. We have people who are on the basis of age, 61% felt that they were perceived to be discriminated against. Disability, 50%, 58% in terms of ethnic origin, gender, 43%, religion or belief, 45%, and sexual orientation, 40%. that's the percentage of those who considered that discrimination on those grounds was widespread. In terms of it being rare, as follows: age, it was 33%, disability 43%, ethnic origin 35%, gender 50%, religion or belief 47%, and sexual orientation 48%. Now, so that means we have a large number of people. If we just focus on religious belief and expression, 45 and 47%, we have a large number of people out there who perceive that there's either widespread or rare aspects of discrimination. Those who felt it was non-existent or even they don't know were less than 10%. It was either 1% or 7%. So that means actually then what we should overall be saying is that actually a school should not maybe perhaps say anything on regarding anyone's religious clothing or religious emblems that they as an expression of their own faith decide to don in the school itself, because essentially it's their identity, and it needs to be something that we are holding to, and children need to see that in the school space. For young children who grow up, the school is the first place where they see the real world, where they see what society looks like. There will be some people who may wear the burqa or the niqab. There may be some who they have they wear a turban, if you're a Sikh, and they need to be exposed to all of these symbols so that actually they are not afraid to engage in discussions. Because when you get older in the workplace, if you've never seen someone who wears a religious garment wearing that, you might be very afraid to ask the question, oh, sorry, why do you wear that? Wear that. So actually in schools, needs to be really the sowing, the grounds, what's the expression, the ground where you sow the seeds of discussion, and discussion can only come from people's religious expression. But this is a bigger conversation that needs to be had. I'd like also to just offer it over to yourself as guest to offer your last closing words before we wrap up. Yes.
What I would say is, when it comes to schools should definitely allow, as you said, children to express themselves and express their faith, and not stop that happening at all. However, there should also be common sense from the school in regards to what is it that the child will bring into school. If we're talking about different sort of something that could be used as a weapon or be seen as a weapon, then it's common sense. And so basically should be a conversation within the school and whatever community they are in, because they know if they're in certain areas there'll be more of Sikh practicing people or different faiths, so they need to adjust themselves to the community that surround them, rather than just have a strict view on everything and say this is not happening, this is not happening. Rather allow a conversation with the community or the parents in that school to actually define what is acceptable, what's not, and have an open conversation rather than just have a strict view on everything.
Sure. And yourself, Emma?
Yeah, I totally agree about having open conversations between schools and parents and, within the surrounding community. I totally agree with what you said about how schools should have fair representation of multicultural elements and faiths, because it does then render children as more engaged, more aware of other faiths. And, unfortunately, what you said about someone who has not been exposed to a particular faith in school and then finding themselves in the workplace and being afraid to ask the question about, why someone wears something, and not really understanding something. Unfortunately, I don't think it so openly happens like that, of just asking the question. I mean, research shows that when people don't understand something and someone appears as different from them and they're ignorant of it, that often breeds fear, and then that breeds prejudice. And I think that's the real worry, isn't it? Is that if we're not getting our children to engage
from a young age,
young age, then essentially we're sending them out into the world with ignorance and then fear and then prejudicial opinions of other people, and then you get into sort of more, much worse situations that we're all aware of. So yeah, I think it is the key to start off young. But of course, like you said, there are lots of sort of other things, like we said, with the health and safety issues that schools as an institution have to think about. But yeah, definitely, I think educating them young and being very open is the key. Absolutely.
Okay. Well, thank you, listeners. Thank you, guests. There is no doubt that we can be discussing so many aspects of religious expressions within schools and without and outside of schools. And we really need to be open up those conversations from a young age, because the fear is that, and actually just to read off something very quickly here, RE itself, if we said, let's say if we, just before we wrap up, if we said that all schools were going to not allow any children to have any religious symbols on display, and they only specified it to RE lessons, yeah. Now, as a teacher, myself, and I'm sure as a teacher yourself, you know that you don't do teach RE every single day. Neither do you cover every religion in a week when you teach it explicitly in that 1 week. So if it was only left and specified to an RE lesson, it'll be very limited as to the discussions that can take place. Some children might not be in. All sorts of things are thrown up by that very factor. And what it actually says here, the National Association for RE, gathered by the Department for Education in 2015, so only 3 years ago, showed that overall 26% of secondary schools were not offering RE lessons. Among academies, a third were not offering RE for 11 to 13-year-olds, and then almost half not even to 14 to 16-year-olds. So we have to actually say that we have to make sure that children are expressing themselves and really asking those questions and having open discussions from a real young age. But even by secondary age, the children are forming their opinions, forming their ideas, and if they're not getting enough RE on a day-to-day basis, then certainly it's going to turn into a very narrow-minded atmosphere in which we're going to live. Now, just to wrap it up here, indeed, the conversations that we've had today, the discussion that we've had, is a lengthy one. By no shadow of a doubt, we have not reached a conclusive point. We have drawn some aspects and drawn important points from this, but there is so much more to this discussion than what we've expressed here. So I do want to thank both of my guests, Fatima and Emma, for coming on the show, and to express a huge appreciation for any listeners out there who have tuned in to Ramadan FM 2018. So without further ado, thank you very much, and Jazakallah khair. May Allah bless you for this Ramadan and accept all of your fasts. Bi-idhnillah.